I ordered a Gen X bomb shelter today. Welcome back to another episode of Gen X and Millennial Memes, where every Friday we finally remember all the things we didn't even know we forgot about. Got some good memes and memories today, so let's jump right into it. If you grew up in the 80s, you know there was nothing scarier than this guy's voice telling you about scary stuff that nobody solved. Neighborhood feud. My neighbor put up a United Federation of Planets flag on his house. The neighbors across the street just raised a Klingon flag. It's not looking good, guys. The guy that took his photo should raise a flag for the bored collective. You don't know the struggle until you've eaten hot dogs on sandwich bread. That's not a struggle. We use sandwich bread to replace buns on about everything, and we also made all sorts of other things out of it. When Gen X went to the beach for the first time. Never forget, Geppetto kept a strap under his pillow. Yep, back when a time that even the cartoons had common sense. Cosplay isn't just for the young. That's one of the best I've seen. I saw this greeting card at Walmart the other day and just had to take a picture for you guys. Apparently Payphones has now achieved mythical status. Am I fat? Boomers, you could lose a few pounds. Millennials, no, you're beautiful. Gen Z, we don't body shame. Of course you're not. Gen X, I know 5 fat people, and you're 4 of them. My grandmother had this exact same can opener. It was even the same color. Is it possible to get a song stuck in your head just by looking at an image? Go yourself.
Phenomena. Phenomena. Phenomena.
Forget your zodiac sign. What character do you choose to play in Mario Kart? Toad, the little mushroom guy. I swear, his car was always the fastest. And if somebody already chose him, my next choice was the green turtle. How many of you guys have seen the modern public school grading scales? Back in our day, what was considered a failing grade is now considered between a C+ or a B-. Of course, I'm pretty sure they've done away with the minus and plus scale as well, because that wouldn't be inclusive. Well, even though I didn't feel like it today when I was mowing my grass and at 95 degrees outside, but summer is coming toward a close, and we're soon going to be heading into fall, which means we're going from green to the fall colors. So along with that, we have Soylent Orange. It tastes like pumpkin spice, and it's still made with people. When someone yells, "Stop!" I never know if it's in the name of love, if it's hammer time, or if I should collaborate and listen. Which is the most ignored generation? Yes.
That's why yellow makes me sad, I think.
That's interesting. You know what makes me sad?
You do! Maybe we should chug on over to Mamby-Pamby land, where maybe we can find some self-confidence for you, you jackwagon!
Tissue? Right there.
New studies suggest video games are good for your mental health. Boomers, this is not scientifically possible. ESPN releases photo of only remaining person with perfect NCAA basketball bracket. Why? Because it was the 80s. That's why. Yeah, we learned to improvise and make whatever we had work. I can't even describe the pain when I realized I can hear this in perfect clarity in my head. And all of you that just read this know that that is true. Reject modernity, embrace tradition. The mayor in Jaws is still the mayor in Jaws too. This is why it's important to vote in your local elections. So what do you want this year? Me. I'm sorry, but why in the world does this even exist? Let alone, why would you want it for a bed? I don't care if I'm 5 years old or 55 years old. I will still love watching Tom and Jerry. I think it's one of the few cartoons that actually is pretty timeless and transcended generations, at least from the boomers, Gen X, and even the millennials. A show made back in a time when they still had good cartoons. I finally know why they call me a grown-up. I groan every time I get up. Pretty much. And just like that, 1999 was 25 years ago. Yeah, when you're waiting on something, years seem to go by awful slowly. But when you're looking back, 25 years ago was just yesterday. Holding my mom's cigarette as she zips up my coat. I can absolutely see this younger generation doing exactly this. When it comes to these younger kids, whatever you do, don't put their name on the title until they're at least 30. Or maybe just put it in your will. That way, at least you don't have to see it happen. And by that time, maybe they'll appreciate it. Mom finally cashed in her Marlboro miles. Those curtains literally look like a pack of cigarettes. I wonder if that was actually intentional. When it's school picture day, but you gotta sell a 73 Cutlass Supreme at $3.45. Not all heroes wear capes. Wisconsin man throws beer bottle at bartender when she changes Black Sabbath to Christmas music. Every time I make cinnamon toast, it reminds me of the Hiroshima victims, and I get a bit sad. Did you know there's a life-size Jason Voorhees statue standing 120 feet down in Crystal Lake in Minnesota? So somebody built this whole statue and put it all the way down that deep in that lake, just for the handful of people that had ever happened to stumble upon it. Although, if they didn't know that it was there, it'd probably scare the heck out of them. The Jetsons really predicted our future. That one kitchen table everyone had growing up. I actually didn't know this was a thing, but we did indeed have this exact kitchen table. The chairs and everything were identical. It was all made out of oak. But the thing is, I never knew anyone else that had one of these. It's 1987. Which movie you watching? Probably RoboCop. I'm officially, they don't make music like this anymore, years old. If you hear me telling the same story twice, just let it go. I only have like 6 memories, and they all take turns. Man, it's not just 6 memories, but still too close being the truth. Alright guys, here is an article I came across a couple days ago that I just had to share with you guys. GMC made a motorhome that pumps sewage through its exhaust on purpose. You've heard of rolling coal, now get ready for rolling Taco Bell. It was supposed to be odorless, but the employees of the company said it had that hot diaper smell. Just think if it was somebody tailgating you or blowing their horn or just otherwise being obnoxious, and you just go and turn this thing on until the stink drives them away. Remember when the FBI would threaten you at the beginning of every VHS tape? That was pretty cool. For people of a certain age, this page of the paper was everything. If you know what this page was, drop it down in the comments. My little brother said, "This is how kids these days cheat on their tests." Could you imagine what we would have done if we'd even had some of the technology that they have today, back when we were kids? Always remember to check on your friends. They may need help welding. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? In other words, the streetlights has been on for a while now. Are your children home yet? If you remember this show, you are from the greatest generation. Who knew the apocalypse was going to be so slow and expensive? Man, you're telling me. I never thought I'd be this old. Because I sure as heck thought that everything would be done and over with a long time ago. But here we are, still waiting on the nukes. Or whatever event they use to kick it off with. Elementary kids have iPhones. When I was a kid, I put glue on my hands just so I could peel it off when it dried. Guys waiting for roadside assistance since they don't know how to put on a spare tire. Just another note on the sad day and times that we're in. What Gen X thought retirement would be like. Gen X actual retirement. How many of you guys are actually retired? Or, if you are retired, that you're still not having to work? I would say it's very, very few. Who can hear this? I'd say about all of us. Especially the reverb it made in the gym after it hit the wooden wall of bleachers. Today's world got me like, "Hey, Davis, you know, come on, man, don't be like that. We didn't need it." I'm so stoked we decided to move to the country. Me too. The sunsets are awesome. Gen X grade school tattoos. The graphite number 2 pencil stab. I think almost all of us had these, and some of us still have these. Gen X, it is what it ising their way through the collapse of civilization. The reason these toys are critical as kids. Yep, and I've seen far too many examples of this. Including just recently, even a guy with a pickup truck who thought he could carry 5 times more than what the truck bed could actually haul. The slipper is still a universal symbol of authority. This is true.
Ау, не можно таким, там больно сейчас. Что это такое? Ругаться буду. Веди себя прилично, как лев.
When McDonald's was still McDonald's. Yeah, and the playground was on a concrete patio. The first time you beat Mike Tyson was one of the proudest moments of your life. Our grandparents just cut the mold off of the cheese block and we ate it anyway. This isn't a thing anymore? I don't know why not. There's nothing wrong with that block of cheese. It just molds on the outside. I still cut it off and eat the rest of it. The National Generation X Society. We totally don't care what you think. I should make this into a t-shirt. What do you guys think? Speaking of t-shirts, it's so cringy to see middle-aged men wearing Nirvana brand t-shirts like they're trying to fit in with young people. Like, shouldn't you have your own style from your own era? This tweet has been deleted. Those who like my posts are happier, more intelligent, and better looking than those who don't, according to a study that I made up. Just because I made it up doesn't mean it's not true. So don't forget to hit that like button. What if they remade Home Alone, but with an adult Kevin defending his home on Purge Night? They should definitely do this. I'd watch it. How about you guys? If you're 35 plus, don't forget to take a nap today, or we won't make it to midnight. Pretty bad when you sit down after you eat dinner and you can't keep your eyes open. That time when Monopoly money became real, but the Monopoly money was worth more. Yep, that's pretty much today. And the single worst song of the 80s goes to... I'll leave this one up to you guys. Whether it's listed here, or if you have a different one, drop it down in the comments. Hi, I hope this email finds you in another dimension where none of this. Milli Vanilli watching people get famous for lip syncing on TikTok. Yeah, today, lip syncing, or using auto-tune, has just become the norm. You don't know concentration until you have to carry this thing from the sink to the freezer. It's not that hard. I still use these trays. We're so old, we remember when this was just a candy. That's pretty bad, but it is true. Macho Cop. Part man, part machine. All savage. Master Yoda, take a Snickers. You're not you when you're hungry. And you call it Numb by Linkin Park, despite the fact it's obviously an EXE file. This one's more for the millennials. However, I'd say most of Gen X use Napster and LimeWire also. Me on Facebook, deep into somebody else's business. You could only do it if they posted it. But these days, I'm hardly even on Facebook. I used to post a lot of news and events on there, but I don't post much of anything anymore. Because honestly, in the end, it just doesn't matter. Well, this meme actually goes in my Laugh While the World Burns series, but these days it is true nonetheless. Except in the case of emergency services, or any hard labor or dirty type jobs. Age test. What is this? This is when computers still had balls. Ah yes, and here we have a piece titled Frustration, done in oils dating back to 1989. People, we have never been more divided as a nation. Gen X in the 90s. In my opinion, I actually think this is very true. Because not only are the people divided, each side is so polarized that the divide has become a Grand Canyon, most of which has been caused by the leftists who have taken everything to the farthest extremes. Speaking of which, Joe Exotic belongs in jail for stealing the top of Hulk Hogan's hair. It kinda does look like one of those cut and paste memes. Have your memes been stolen? You may be entitled to compensation. I object, Your Honor. Memes are the last free bastion of society, and they were meant to be shared. And these days, it costs you $25, if not more. My mom. My hopes of getting McDonald's on the way home. Life before microwave popcorn. Pretty sure I showed this one or one similar to it before, but I do still use one of these air poppers. When you walked by a gas station as a kid, did you stomp on the cord that sounded the bell to alert the gas attendant? I do remember doing this. How about you guys? I'm gonna tell my kids. These wires went to the fridge for the ketchup, mayonnaise, and mustard dispenser. Somebody should actually build this. That'd be hilarious to show them when they didn't believe it. Sometimes I wonder what the part of my brain that used to store people's phone numbers is doing now. I'm not sure, but it needs to start doing something to help my memory. That picture that everyone's mom and grandma owned. How everyone over 40 looks when they read. Remember when you could lay in one position for hours? Now you have to rotate like a rotisserie chicken every 15 minutes or a hip hurts. For me, it's usually my back or my neck. Just a glimpse at 1984. If you know who these two are, we can be friends. Who else hid in the center of these? Who didn't? Remember wearing a beeper and pulling out the Alpine so nobody would steal it? Yeah, for some reason, the radios that you could pull out of your car became a really big thing. The problem was, once you pulled them out, where are you going to put them? I mean, when you were home, sure, you could take it in the house. But most often, your car got broke into while you were in a store, or when you was at work. It's not like that you took your radio out of your car and was carrying it around at Montgomery Ward's or Kmart. I'm Carnival Mirrors years old. Heads Up 7-Up champion. Yep, this is true, because I knew what kind of shoes everybody wore. Some of y'all never had to push your own car, then jump in and pop the clutch, and it shows. Most people today wouldn't even know what you're talking about, let alone having done it. As a kid, I'm happy to say I survived the Astro Pop. Don't run with scissors, but here, have this sucker sword. That is kinda true. Before there was autotune, there was talent. Who had one of these bedspreads back in the day? I don't think that we had one, but I remember one somewhere. I don't know if it was at my grandma's house or if it was somebody else had one. Growing up, did your parents make you cut off the television when it was thundering and lightning? I was told it could blow out the TV. Well, it could fry the TV. Funny thing is, it fried the TV or any other appliance, whether it was turned on or not, just so long as it was still plugged into the wall. As kids, we used to laugh at Al Bundy. As adults, we became Al Bundy. Remember when there was a number you could call just to hear what time it was? Yeah, the one I would call would tell you the time and the temperature, and I'd usually call it every morning before I left for school. The Mount Rushmore of 80s comedy. Don't even think about remaking The Breakfast Club. If they want to remake a movie, go find the movies that flopped the first time and actually try to make them better. Choose your sensei. Well, if the Force was real, you'd have to choose Yoda. Otherwise, I'd choose Mr. Miyagi. How old were you before you realized Casper the Friendly Ghost was just Richie Rich without hair and clothes? Little known fact, Richie Rich was Casper after the Lazarus Machine. Instead of finding a new form of social media, we should all just go back to bonfires, tailgate parties, night fishing, and cruise nights. Bonfires and tailgate parties will get the police called on you nowadays. And some places, if you're caught fishing at night, you might meet the local game warden. And these days, gas is just too expensive to go cruising around. So, I guess I'll just stay home and watch YouTube. This is why everything hurts. Tesla showing off their 100,000 Cybertruck towing a jet engine. A $2,500 Chevy in 1972. Yep, exactly. It towed 4 jet engines, plus the whole rest of the plane. People, there's too much smoking on a show set in the 80s. The 80s. We grew up in a generation where parents took breathing hard as backtalk. This is true. People over 30 when they drive by a closed Blockbuster video. When your jam comes on, but you don't know the lyrics. Either that, or you only know the main chorus of the song. Every Gen Xer knows who this band is. If you know this band of otters, hit the right keys and drop your answer down in the comments below. Growing up, I never knew if I was opening the butter or leftovers. This is true, but it's also true still today. I was looking for the butter the other day, and I picked up the container, and I could feel there was a liquid in there. And I instantly knew that wasn't the butter. When you went to a music store in the 80s and had to wait for them to take this thing off your cassettes. It's February 1976, and this weirdo who looks like he has jaundice just came on the TV in the middle of cartoons and told me to fill our ice trays with orange juice. I completely forgot about this guy until the first time I saw this meme. I'm right in the back of the station wagon, years old. I just saw a clip last night where a guy opened up the back of a car and asked, "How many of you guys remember this one?" And he pulled up the back of the seat out of the floorboard and then flipped over the other part, and of course it made the reverse-facing bench seat. And he said, "This is so all the kids could watch the car get rear-ended." It would be pretty bad, but I wonder how many times that actually happened. Most leading climate change experts now believe that global warming is probably Melissa and Jennifer's fault. You just know that Aquanet had to be like a Fortune 500 company in the 80s. When people become friends with me, and they have no idea about the types of things I post. This is especially true if you watch my other main series here on the channel, Laugh While the World Burns. Like I say on there, because in these days, we all need to find something to laugh about. You had to be there on a Friday night. If you lived in a small-ish town, you'd usually run into at least 1 or 2 people that you knew. Only a few will know this movie. If you know the name of this movie, navigate on down and drop your answers in the comments. If you ate a Big Mac out of one of these, then you're old as dirt. In only 6 years, the 80s will be 50 years ago. The real Karate Kid. Do you guys agree with this? When your mom is shouting at your sibling and you know that you're next. I saw this video last week, and I find it to be very true. And I just thought I'd share it with you guys, because it was Generation X that built the phrase, "It is what it is."
If you know someone who uses the phrase, "It is what it is," trust me, they are dangerous. They've mastered the art of acceptance and refuse to let anything beyond their control to affect them. So if you try to manipulate or threaten to leave their life, think again. They don't give a f. They do not care. You can walk out of their life and they'll even open the door for you. And the best part, when someone asks them if they're okay because you left them, they'll simply use that magical phrase, "It is what it is." They won't chase after you or beg you to stay. They've learned that life goes on, no matter what. This attitude makes them strong, resilient. It's not that they don't have feelings. They just prioritize their peace. So if you think you can break them or make them feel small, you're in for a surprise. They've seen it all, and they're still standing tall. You leaving won't shake their world. It is what it is.
I thought that video rang true. What do you guys think about it? Who had this wonderful apparatus? Actually, I took a picture a few weeks ago when I was in the store, and I've been meaning to put it in an episode. I was just walking past the end of an aisle, and they're selling this at my local Walmart now. I was just kind of surprised to see it. How we unfriended people in the 80s. When someone tells me the 90s were better than the 80s. If you guys think that the 90s were the beginning of the downfall of society, show your vote by hitting that like button. Son, when I was a kid, when my mom would use the blender, it would ruin the picture on the TV screen. Don't ask me the science behind it, because there is none. You guys remember this? Even when the compressor motor on the refrigerator would kick in, you'd see a blip on the TV at least for a second or two. Unlike today, basically nothing back then had electrical feedback filters. And most things wasn't even grounded. The glory of owning a Diamondback, Harrow, Redline, Hutch, Mongoose, Skyway, or Dino in the 80s. I remember when my dad and I got in his red Buick LeSabre, and he drove down to the shipping depot to pick up a red BMX bike that he'd ordered from a catalog. I forgot about that until now. Does this bring back memories? We had self-driving technology back in the 80s. Say hello to Christine. 80s kids didn't fear clowns. We watched clowns for breakfast. Yeah, literally. When did all this start that people was afraid of clowns? Is this why McDonald's got rid of Ronald McDonald? My kids will never know the joy of finding a quarter in the coin return. Yeah, every phone booth that you'd walk by, you'd always check just to see. And every so often, you'd find one or two. Kids today, they think their checkerboard Vans, ripped jeans, and Metallica t-shirts are something new. Yeah, they honestly do. And I think bell-bottoms are coming back into style again. I'm sure that they think those are new too. As a kid, Sesame Street taught me the value of education, empathy, and kindness. But Bugs Bunny taught me that revenge on my enemies must be quick, clever, and brutal. that is true, actually. I'd like to have a good steel anvil. I actually made one about 7 or 8 years ago out of a piece of railroad track. It's actually worked pretty good for my needs. Jesse's Girl was released 43 years ago. So if she's still watching him with those eyes, she's got readers on. I just know it. Things just got real. My favorite childhood memory is having energy. I agree. I just wish I didn't feel exhausted as soon as I get up in the morning. My generation was expected to climb a 30-foot rope with a life-saving 2-inch thick mat below. Yeah, this was basic training, getting you ready for boot camp. I can smell this through my phone. I was going through some stuff a few weeks ago and found one of these. Surprisingly, it was actually dried up, so I threw it away. In the 80s, we had all the same things these kids today have, for much cheaper. This is true. If you played in the street and remember yelling, "Car!" you had an awesome childhood. This door weighed more the entire car that you're driving now. I'm worried that people today are forgetting what Prime Day is really about, and who went alive to make it possible. I love when a group of people recognize a random picture and knows exactly where it's from. That's no random picture. That's a classic. When I was a kid, we slid down baking pans fresh out of the oven. A lot of my friends had this as their first car. Yeah, if you were talking to someone that you didn't know, and you said it fast enough, you might be able to make someone think that you had a Corvette. I mean, they are made by the same company. This was better than half the garbage that's on TV today. Yep, I definitely agree. But I think it's a lot more than just half. You know you're old anytime you're entering your date of birth. With a smartphone, you get to the year and you have to spin that like you're on Wheel of Fortune. Who made this meme? One Wheel of Fortune. The Price is Right. Everyone's wanting a Jetson car in 2024. Not me. I want Rosie to clean my house. I agree with this 1000%. An android that can clean your house and do chores would be light years better than any Cybertruck. I'm so old, I once got a phonograph record on a cereal box. The official bowl from childhood. Me, my sense of humor. People who are easily offended. If you are one of those people, don't watch my other popular series here on the channel, Laugh While the World Burns. Answer: I'm gonna need to see some ID. Me. In my mind, this was 40 years ago. In my heart, it was yesterday. How much of an allowance did you get as a teenager per week? Me, I was allowed to live there. You got that right, and that's the way it should be. He's got a pretty nice collection. He's got a good number of some rare and even vintage models. It looks like there's even one that has a scope. Gen X Challenge. Give yourself a point for everything you've done. I did all of these except for 3. Popped your collar and pegged your jeans. As well as used sun in. I'm not really sure what that is. I was first thinking that it might have been a sun tanning lotion, but maybe it was a hair dye? I'm not sure. If you guys know, drop it in the comments. People are climbing mountains and ziplining, and I'm feeling good that I got my leg through my underwear without falling down. That Life Alert commercial isn't so funny anymore, is it? Talk about inflation. Now you have to pay for your own kidnapping. You all weren't there. Back in the day, this was a giant leap forward in technology. What will the current generation do when they don't have GPS? We really got sat down and served this at 10:30 a.m. and just said, "Alright." Sometimes at school, they even served breakfast pizza. And if you were lucky, it was like this, with actual pizza sauce. The ones that I could not stand was the ones that they actually called breakfast pizza, which had white gravy instead of pizza sauce. Those things were just nasty. Call me weird, but I prefer the way the night looked in the 70s and 80s horror movies. Something about those deep blues. How lunch was done on a road trip before all the fast food joints. I think this probably relates more to you boomers here on the channel, because by the time that most of Gen X came along, there were plenty of fast food places. One day you're in your 20s, staying up to 3 a.m., eating pizza and dancing like no one's watching. Then suddenly, you're in your mid-40s, eating kale, going to bed at 8 p.m., and you can't dance because you pulled a muscle putting on your socks. If you went back to the 80s, what would you do first? First thing I'd do is go hug my dad. A quick memory will recall the significance of these numbers in record speed. So the MD doesn't mean Mad Dog? My whole life is a lie. This I did not know. I know Mogan David makes wine. I'm interested to see how many of you guys knew about this. Put it down in the comments. You're a kid in your dad's car. What is he about to make you listen to? Probably nothing. Dad didn't like a radio on in the car. My dad was an unpaid minister for almost 40 years, though he used to like some of the older gospel music. But more recently, in the last few years before he passed away, he liked to listen to Elvis's gospel songs that he found here on YouTube. Who remembers swinging so high, the poles lifted up out of the ground? Most people are at the age where they're using their phones to document the good times in their lives. I'm at the age where I use my phone to take pictures of labels that I can't read and use my phone to enlarge the print so I can read it. I also take pictures of stuff so I just don't forget it. If you recognize this scene, then you've seen one of the greatest films ever made. I agree. That was, and always will be, a great movie. Your game takes 15 seconds to load? Here, try this. Bert notices the hat, but chooses not to engage Ernie, since he knows it'll lead to some ridiculous shenanigans. Who remembers the California raisins? If you have an iPhone, tell Siri, I see a little silhouette of a man. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. What kids have these days? What we had. How many of you guys remember when you could buy a book they had all sorts of these. A lot of people were able to see it, but some couldn't. I always thought that these were kind of cool because of how strange it was that they were able to take something that looks like this and yet turn it into a 3D type image. If you guys are able to see this one, drop what you see down in the comments. Post an older TV show that today's kids have probably never heard of. Any of the shows that we grew up with. I think you can name just about all of them. Which one was your favorite? Boston baked beans were pretty good. Lemonheads weren't bad either. But my favorite two were Red Hots and Jawbreakers. Adulting looked way more affordable in the 80s. I feel scammed. You don't just feel scammed. All of us have been scammed. There are many, many reasons, but just one is inflation, the tax that's hidden in plain sight. When dinner was served on paper plates, but you wanted to class it up a bit. Actually, it was just so you could use cheaper paper plates and they still didn't fall apart. I still use these today. The only problem with these is that after a while, they start to fall apart. I need to get some new ones. They say the real ones know about the struggle meal. This isn't a struggle meal. This is a childhood delicacy. Don't claim to be a music fan unless you know this band. These here look like they were in brand new condition. Imagine you hating me, and I'm just at home using my Garfield phone to call the crisis hotline. Well, I guess that's one good use for it. It was a pretty cool phone, though. Today's kids will never know about bubblegum in a dish. How many pieces do you wish? Your mom thought we were riding your bike around the block for 8 hours. But in that time, you went 6 miles away, explored an abandoned house, jumped over some garage roofs, attempted a Ouija board, built a den in the woods, and made your own fire. Them. How old are you? Me. I remember when Kim Cattrall was a mannequin. I still don't think I've ever seen that movie. I'm old enough to remember when a wild night out meant skating around in circles while a DJ played music. I think the funniest thing is that just off screen, it looks like there's somebody falling. The retirement age needs to be lowered to 40. I've had enough. I have to agree with this one. A man should be able to make enough in 20 years' time to be able to actually have time to live life. I've seen too many people that had to work until their health got so bad that they just couldn't work anymore. And I've seen others who had to work all the way up until they died. The life that most of us have these days isn't actually living. This guy is still scarier than 90% of modern horror movies. Gen Z will never understand the pain and embarrassment of a group of cowboys outing you for getting your salsa from New York City. Unless you were there in 1982, you can't even imagine how baller this setup was. I think at some point in time, we all had this TV stand too. I'm gonna be a little late coming in on Monday. Okay, when will you be in? Tuesday. 9-year-old me closing my eyes in the car on the way home and trying to guess where we are. Mom in the 60s. My hair can't get any bigger. Daughter in the 80s. Hold my boombox. This was sent in by Shelly, who is one of the viewers here on AkornzStash. If you have any memes, links, or other things that you would like to submit, you can send it to our email, akornzstash@gmail.com. The link is also down below in the video description. This telephone is no longer in operation. It is a historical artifact. Take pictures or remember the old days. That's right, guys. Payphones are now just a museum piece. When Vincent Price agreed to lend his voice to Thriller, he had to choose between a share of the album's profits or a flat fee of $20,000. He chose the $20,000. But I guarantee you, he regretted it later. Remember when we used to laugh at the commercial? I've fallen down and I can't get up. Yeah, it's not so funny anymore. In last week's episode, I made a comment almost identical to this. And then yesterday, I come across this meme. At least I'm not the only one who thinks this. This generation today will never know the experience. I slept on a waterbed one time. My back was hurting me so bad the next morning, I didn't want to sleep on them anymore after that. When the Goonies were in theaters. How it feels when I have to scroll down to the year I was born. On last week's episode, there was a meme where somebody was saying that when you're having to scroll all the way down to find the year you were born, it was like spinning the wheel on Wheel of Fortune. And I basically said that they were wrong, that it was more like the Price is Right wheel. The reason being, anytime that you have to scroll down for the year you were born, you're always scrolling vertically. I don't know if I've ever seen one where it scrolled horizontally. That was just my thinking, at least. My wife is getting her hair done, and I told her to watch out for turtles. I asked my daughter to give me the phone book. She laughed at me, called me a dinosaur, and lent me her iPhone. So the spider is dead, the iPhone is broken, and my daughter is furious. And that is just hilarious. A long, long time ago, before gamers could look up maps on the internet, this is what you did. Map, circa 1987. You know you're over 40 when you have upstairs ibuprofen and downstairs ibuprofen. I don't have an upstairs, and I try not to take ibuprofen too much, because it's not good for your kidneys for one thing. More often than not, I take extra strength Tylenol and Excedrin migraine, most of the time together, which if I remember right, it's probably bad for your liver. With that said, I also have my prescription meds, and I always keep my main bottles in my house. I have one bottle with some extras in my car, and I have another bottle with some extras over in my barn. That way, if I forget to take them, then I always have some close by. And I've seen a couple memes concerning this, but I thought this one was pretty good. Akornzstash viewer Linda sent me an email a few days ago with some lyrics and asked me if I knew where it was from. And hopefully, this is the lyrics, unless YouTube hits me with copyright, like they did a past video.
Pickles,
Pickles, cheese, oh,
lettuce and onion, sesame all seed bunch.
I think they're describing a big...
two all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Say that again.
Two all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Two all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, onions, pickles, onions on a list.
McDonald's Big Mac, the
big sandwich with a great big taste that everybody's talking about.
Sesame seed bun, and we forgot the onion.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did say onion. It said onion.
All right.
To all these patty special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
McDonald's Big Mac. The great big sandwich with a great big taste.
Lettuce.
Pickles.
Hey, that's a Big Mac.
You deserve a break today at McDonald's.
Where your dollar gets a break every day.
Do you even lift, bro? 43 years ago, back on Saturday, August 1st, 1981, at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, MTV debuts on cable TV. Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll. The very first thing that aired was a music video. If you know what song it was, hit a bunch of keys on your keyboard and drop your answer in the comments. GoFundMe, 1988 edition. You only have 1 quarter. Which game are you playing? All of these are great games, but if I only had 1 quarter, I'd want it to last as long as possible. So if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Super Mario Brothers. Because as long as I was using the original controller, I think muscle memory would kick back in. You might be old if 1 point for everything you've done. There's a total of 24 possible points here, and I definitely made all 24 points. What score did you guys get? I will add that it's kind of sad that listening to music on a CD and having used an encyclopedia is on this list. Sometimes I'd like to leave my kids in 1985 just to see how long they would last there. I think the whole younger generation needs to be done to this way, a few at a time. Abandoned malls should be turned into Gen X retirement homes, 3 stories tall, with a food court, movie theater, arcade, Orange Julius, a skate park, and a glamour shots just for the heck of it. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if someone don't do this. Back in the 80s, we would sit anxiously and wait for our favorite song to come on the radio and then hit record. Gen Xers will get this. Yep, sure do. If you get it, drop it in the comments. Wood grain, the bling of the 80s. That is very true. These days, stainless steel is kind of being done the same way. It's the new wood grain. It's finally happening. Yeah, because nobody knows how to drive a stick shift anymore. It's the best anti-theft device too. Just remember to not let any younger person drive your vehicle. Otherwise, you're gonna have a big repair bill. If we reenacted the stuff we pulled in our teens and 20s, we'd all be TikTok famous by now. Yeah, kids today believe that things like the Tide Pod Challenge or the Ice Bucket Challenge shows how tough they are. But if most of us did the stuff that we did as kids, we could each have millions of followers. However, on the flip side, we'd probably also be in the hospital because we're just too old now. On top of that, some of the younger kids today would try to copy us, and they'd be in the hospital too. And then their lawyers would be trying to sue us for it. Core memory unlocked. I'm this old. When the car you used to draw in the 4th grade pulls up on you. That's a pretty good description. The 80s survival kit. In 1980, the coyote finally caught the roadrunner. He then asked the audience, "Now what do I do?" It may have just been a parody, but I read somewhere that they showed that the coyote finally caught the roadrunner, and he took him, cooked him up, and shared him with his best friend. But I know for certain that I never saw that in the official cartoon. Yep, I agree. As a kid, when this came on, it was time to turn off the TV. When we grew older, though, we found out that this was actually a great show. Y'all want to talk about generational divides? I don't know anyone under 40 who separates laundry into lights and darks. Admit it, when Ferris Bueller changed his grades, you briefly considered what your own school's computer system was like. If you played these growing up, you are an original gamer. Bro unalived, but they made him go to work anyway. They're not wrong. Things you say after 40. I'm not going to read all of these, but they are pretty true. And in my view, justifiably so. If you guys want to read them, you can pause the video. My friend showed me how they fixed the water stain on the ceiling in their office. What can I say? That's the perfect repair. If you're a young person, it might be hard to really understand this, but the whole world used to smell like cigarettes. The 1980s smartwatch. Some of my viewers has asked me in the comments on past episodes if I remember the calculator watch. And although I never remember having one, yes, I do remember them. I don't think that any of us could forget these. How do people go to sleep as soon as they close their eyes? It takes me 3 hours, 11 pillow flips, 7 different positions, 2 trips to the bathroom, and a partridge in a pear tree. This isn't far from the truth. The only therapy dog that can handle all my problems. Teens today don't know how good they have it with lyric sites. We used to have to sing it wrong for years until the truth destroyed us. Either you be singing it wrong the whole time, or when you come to that one little part, you just be fumbling over it because you never could quite understand what they were saying. Back in '75, The Muppet Show predicted what most women would look like in 2024.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
When kids rode their bikes to 7-Eleven to spend their allowance on cheap candy and comic books. I've been out of school for 35 years, and I have never once used algebra. I actually asked the teacher one day, when would we ever use algebra in real life? And her reply was, well, if you become an algebra teacher. And I honestly think, for the 99% of people, that's the only correct answer. When I say I'm living the dream, this is the dream I'm referring to. We have breakfast at home. I love the 2 chicken bones off to the side there. The Tesla Cybertruck is just a Pontiac Aztek with PlayStation 1 graphics. Fact check true. The world we grew up in is slowly fading away. If you could sit on this bench and chat for 1 hour with anyone, who would it be? I'd give anything to have one last conversation with my dad. Gen Z, Gen X. Being Gen X is weird because there's grunge and hip hop, but there's also a lot of Phil Collins floating around in your head. Christine was the first self-driving car to catch on fire, way before Tesla made it a standard feature. Fact check true. Viewer Al999 sent me a message asking if I remember the toy lead dispensers that had the cork on a string. I had completely forgotten about these, but I was able to look it up and find a few images. Let's win the games again. The official cigarette of the 1984 Olympics. When you were in 7th grade and couldn't afford actual highlights. In a past episode, there was a mention of a product called Sun-In, and a whole bunch of you left comments telling me that it was a spray-in hair lightener. A few days later, I actually came across this meme. I miss the days when the news smacked so hard, Peter Jennings had to fire up a heater just to deliver it. If this wasn't your hot dog, hamburger, sloppy joe, bun, bread, or toast growing up, we aren't the same. Sharpening a pencil at the bin was the childhood equivalent of taking a cigarette break. Some of us might have actually went and taken a cigarette break. The American Dream by generation. Boomer, Millennial, Zoomer, Gen X. This is true, although some of the boomers also had the duck and cover drills. But either way, we're back at that time again. You can drop us in the wilderness with 3 matches, a Snickers bar, and $1.75, and we will make it home alive. Skater Unalive girls shredding. Late 70s and early 80s ladies. Gen X at work. 0 to I don't care in less than 3 seconds. Generation X. 20 years old. Whatever. I'll never live past age 25. 40 years old. I can't believe I'm still alive. And 50 years old. 8/8 of 1986. Never forget. Yep, 38 years ago. Here's a poster that was put up on the noteboard at someone's work. Examples of unacceptable behavior. Responding with frequent sarcasm. That's just discrimination against Gen X. The Badger is a pretty good comparison, but in my opinion, we're more along the lines of a Wolverine. Generation X authentication test. I'm not going to read all this, but if you guys want to, you're welcome to pause the video here. Someone asked me if I had plans for the fall. It took me a moment to realize they meant autumn, not the collapse of civilization. People, why is Gen X so cynical? Gen X, what we were promised. What we got. It's true. I'm this many years old. My dad had a gas station in the late 60s, early 70s. And he hated those pop can tabs because people would throw them down all over the parking lot. And they were hard to sweep up with a broom. Millennials and Gen Z. These old people have no idea what we're up to. Gen X. How many of you guys remember going to a gas station or somewhere just to grab a drink or something? Then you didn't have enough cash. So you whipped out the checkbook and wrote out a check for something less than $1. Falling off the roof when you're a kid. Sneezing too hard when you're an adult. Sadly, this is true. Generation X Life Cycle, Female Edition. You've come a long way, baby. The world. Gen X. At this point, if there's an apocalypse, most of us will be like, whatever. Yeah, I've gotten this way over the years. Things Gen X is annoyed by. Then, the machine, authority, government, corporations, people. Now, Trader Joe's parking lot, crabgrass, ankle, knee, hip joints, and everything else. And people. First thing, I think these are just in addition to the first list, because that list has never changed. Secondly, I like crabgrass. It grows out here when nothing else will. Wonder Bread and Twinkies, proud suppliers to the 1984 U.S. Olympic team. Back in those days, these things were actually considered good. Now, it's like the worst thing you can eat. Of course, so is everything else in the store these days. Gen X age 16 through 49. Gen X age 50 plus. Gen X after its third economic meltdown, second energy crisis, the fourth bout of never-ending inflation, third major threat of nuclear war, while on the verge of a fourth major real estate meltdown. Yeah, there's going to be another meltdown because nobody can afford to buy a house because we're all broke. And now the interest on mortgages are so high, nobody can even get approved. Young people. It must have been boring in the 70s with no smartphones or computers. Gen X. What the predator sees after 15 seconds of chasing me. When you realize that Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, Prince Thompson Twins, Billy Idol, New Order, and the Bangles are being constantly played on the oldie station. People. The world is burning. What are we gonna do? Gen X. Whatever. Baby Yoda. Old Yoda. Middle-aged divorced alcoholic Yoda. (1986), 1998, 2010, 2024. What's the first thing you think of when you see this man? John Candy played a lot of great characters. One of them was Barf from Spaceballs. Not saying I'm old, but when I was in school, we made our parents ashtrays as gifts. How can you sleep at night knowing people don't like you? Gen X. With the fan on. Because no kid ever had that eating grin from a video game. Text on a cigarette box. Aisle on a live view. 1980s break room. Everyone here knows this was no ostrich. Thou shalt not try me. Mom, 24/7. Yep, very true. When you needed the pizza yesterday. Whoever did this is pretty smart, because since they made this an advertisement for the restaurant, they get to write it off on their taxes. Who remembers wearing a concert t-shirt the next day to school? Please be patient with me. I'm from the 1900s. I'm this old. Yeah, and they probably just took that picture last week. Back when furniture was actually lasted. My young co-workers asked me to show them pictures of me in high school. I said I'd go home and dig some out. They said, "Can't you just look on your phone?" And I laughed and laughed and laughed. And then I cried. Do you remember ice-cold sodas in glass bottles? Yes, I do. And it tasted a whole lot better than the stuff they got today. Although there is a couple sodas today that you can still buy in a glass bottle, and they're even made with real sugar, but you usually don't see them all that often. Gen X never thought they would live past 25, so they just accepted it. And now they're all... When I say the other day, it could be any time between yesterday and my birth. Well, that's almost true. Because a lot of times when we're thinking about something, it seems like it was just the other day. If all of our childhood homes were summed up in one picture. Last month, I did the unthinkable and finally threw out that box of unloved cables that I dragged with me throughout adulthood. Today, I realized that I needed one of them and have no idea how to find a replacement. Consider this a warning to you all. I've got several boxes of cable stored up in the loft in my barn. That way, at least if I ever need a cable, I can still go up there and search through them. It's not the way I look that reveals my age. It's my use of complete sentences and punctuation when I text. I don't know if I would agree with this. The first text messaging that we all done was on a regular dial pad where you had to hit each button 1 to 3 times to get the letter you needed. So I think most of us tried to figure out how to shorten the messages down to as few letters as possible. Now these days is a little different since we actually have a full keyboard. Me at 18, I can do whatever I want to do. Me at 50, I can do whatever 800 milligrams of ibuprofen will allow me to do. That is true to some degree. More often for me, though, is what my migraine headaches will allow me to do. Mom, I want a normal picture for the church directory, okay? Me. Who remembers pulling a soda out of one of these machines? How many of you guys remember rubber band guns? I don't ever remember having one this fancy. The only one I ever remember had a clothespin for a trigger. The reason why Gen X doesn't look their age is because we are well preserved with all of the Aquanet we used in the 80s. 325 Dodge Chargers were used in the 6 years of production on the Dukes of Hazzard. I wonder how many guys went to look at a Dodge Charger and just thought, man, what a Bondo bucket. What Millennial and Gen Z coworkers expect when they finish a task in the office. Gen X managers. When you start eating the food you have at home instead of eating out. Not these days, it isn't. You're broke after you go to the grocery store. You're just more broke if you go out to eat. In high school, I was so excited to become a senior. I'm not too excited now. Nope, certainly ain't. Spaceballs is a better Star Wars movie than the entire Disney Star Wars trilogy. If you agree with this, cast your vote by hitting that like button. Gen X parents when they kicked us out of the house to go play with our friends. If he unalives, he unalives. How many of these jingles do you remember? I'm not going to read all these. You guys can pause the video if you want to. But I'd say most of us remember all of these. When the game was loading and you saw your reflection on the screen. Is that a clear Super Nintendo? Or is it in some kind of security case? Looks like it's in the security case. Rob Zombie looks like the ghost of Macho Man Randy Savage. They're not wrong. Do not trust this guy to get you concert tickets. What song are they listening to? Drop your answers down in the comments. You know you're getting old when your childhood toys start getting called collectibles or antiques. Or when you see them in a museum. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, there were so many wonderful fake tobacco products to choose from. Just the fact that the cigarette companies themselves also made the candy cigarettes just made it that much better. The 80s. Many memories, no evidence. Yep, before everybody had a smartphone and cameras were everywhere. Back in the day, we had to get up and walk to change the TV channel, uphill both ways in the snow. That's a nice touch with the film cartridge vase. Be honest, who can still drive this? I'm sure most of us here on the channel can. The 1980s. People wanted to know what the future would look like. In 2024, people want to go back to the 1980s. If only. I'm not gonna lie, I always rooted for Wiley. As a child, I could be entertained for hours by just picking these up and letting them spin. Yep, these were the original fidget spinners. And you didn't even have to buy them. 80s kids didn't fear clowns. We watched clowns for breakfast. Yeah, literally. These, I can still smell them. How many of you guys do you remember these markers? Poltergeist house for sale, $1.2 million. That means back in the day it'd have been what? 150,000? 200 maybe? What's the first 80s movie you think of when you see Patrick Swayze? There's a bunch of movies you could pick from. Roadhouse, obviously. I'd say the next one comes to mind is Ghost. What about you guys? Don't worry about getting older. You're still gonna do dumb stuff. Only slower. Well, that doesn't help any. Gen X, the only generation to be 30 at 15 and still 30 at 50. And they say you can't hear a picture. 2024, still listening to 80s and 90s music. When I was a kid, I thought this little piggy went to market meant that it went shopping. I think most of us did, or at least I did. But I don't eat pork, so I kind of have an excuse. I know it's tragic that the Wi-Fi isn't working, but let me tell you a story of catastrophic proportions from my childhood. I know I had this happen plenty of times with cassette tapes, but I don't remember if I had it happen with a VHS tape. Kids today will never know that this was the original Star-Lord. Enjoy the little things in life, because one day you'll look back and realize they were the big things. That is very true. Too bad we don't have more fond memories to look back on. And I'll end this episode with this. Tomorrow is not promised. Call your siblings and tell them they're ugly and adopted. And if they get mad, you can send them a link to this video as an explanation. Please click on one of these videos to help support the channel. Hit like and subscribe and share this video with your family and friends. I thank you all for watching. Take care. Stay safe. This is Akorn. Over and out.